Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of GateDrop.com podcast. This one is all about the Motocross of Nations in Mantova, and what an unbelievable race that was. It's hard to know where to start. Wet, dry, Cairoli, Hurlings, penalties, Lupino, Cyril Gino. Where do you start with this one, Andy?
Ciao, ciao Italiano. That's right. Start unreal. What a weekend. We were very skeptical about the Motocross Nation this weekend, and it actually ended up being unbelievable. So fair play. Really great racing, great track. The conditions were tough and difficult. Great to watch. And where do you start? Action packed, wasn't it? Full
Yeah,
of drama as well.
it was unbelievable in terms of the team results, but also loads of it standout individual performances. Like Sabalas from Latvia. We just mentioned Cyril Gino. We'll get on to these guys later, but I think that was one of the joys of this nations was the individual results that were perhaps a wee bit surprising. But let's
Yeah,
start with
absolutely.
Italy. Let's start with Italy. Tony Cairoli, and you can't mention Tony Cairoli without Alex Lupino. They're best mates, and Alex Lupino had Tony Cairoli's entire dreams resting on his shoulders, and that's in that third moto. Cairoli, 36 years old this week, left on a stretcher last weekend, and now he's got another world title, this time with Italy. Absolutely fantastic for him. But my goodness, Alex Lupino, that was must have been the most dramatic, the most stressful race of your life. I,
What a way! What a
I'm
way!
lost for words.
What a way to win the Motocross the Nations. Absolute chaos, wasn't it? Absolutely crazy. As you say, Cairoli, what a story. A true ambassador for this sport. It's likely to be his last Motocross the Nations event. And for him to win it, to go with his 9 times world title, he really does deserve it. His career has deserved a Motocross the Nations. At the time, at times he's rode really well, but just hasn't had the team. This year they had the team that delivered, just about delivered. It was really down to the wire, and obviously the Pino cutting the track, a lot of controversy about it. I personally think a 10 place penalty is is about right. Personally, everyone's got their own opinion on that one, but it is nice to see Italy do the business. And you know what? Mario Guardanini is probably the guy that won it for them as well. Very important to have an MX2 rider, and for him to go, he was tied with Renee Hoffer, but ended up second overall in the MX2 class with a 5.6, very consistent, very fast, and what a future he has as well.
Yeah, and the first moto, it started as a nightmare really for Holland and Italy. Glenn going down, taking Crowley with him, and as you mentioned, Mattia Guadagnini, he stepped up to the plate in that one to take a fifth, really, really crucial ride. It still gave Italy hope. Crowley, the year he won the Nations, he went 21-2. They didn't even use one of his results. In other years, he's been going 1-1 and dominating as the best rider in the world. That's the funny thing about the Nations, that it really is all about the team. Everyone has to do their job. Crowley bounced back, took a calm second in the third overall race, but Guadagnini 5.6, as you say, fantastic. He had two of the best three results. And Alex Lupino, I'm sure he isn't even knowing what to think tonight. Probably complete relief. Crowley probably thought they were just cruising to the win in the last moto. Had probably absolutely no idea of the drama with Lupino. First of all, as you say, he missed turn one, kind of cut to get back on. Then he crashes, and everybody's like, "Oh my goodness!" And then he kind of almost crashes again, and then it looks like he's got his rhythm. And then the penalty comes in, and then nobody knew if the penalty was going to happen. And then it looked like the penalty was going to happen, and then everybody done the calculations, and he needed one more place. And I'm sure Lapino was completely confused whenever they were saying okay, and then next thing you need Sabalas, who by the way rode fantastic all weekend, so big credit to him. And then Lapino gets the position he needs, and then Brylakov decides to ride absolutely fantastic and hound him right to the end of the race. And then Lepedo got into a wobble just coming into the final turn. It was unbelievable.
Absolutely unbelievable. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Not much else to say because you've summarised it so well, but oh, just unbelievable. Oh, I'm telling you, the Italians will party hard tonight, and when they decide to go to bed, whatever time that'll be, I think they'll sleep well. And what a night for them! Unreal. And you could just see the relief in Team Italy once they realised that they'd won the event. Unbelievable. And that's the things you love to see. They work so hard for these things. These moments don't come along often, and especially in Italy's case. So, make the most of it, guys. You deserve it. Congratulations and well done.
I would say there's some of them will not be going to bed at all tonight. Wait, Guadagnini was just absolutely ecstatic. He's having a dream year. He's still in contention for a world championship. He's just won the Motocross des Nations in his first year as what you would say a full-time professional at world level. Cairoli has, after the nightmare of a week ago, where, as he mentioned, for a few seconds he couldn't feel some of his limbs, which is unbelievably scary, to come back right injured. By the way, his race win in the heat on Saturday was phenomenal. To run down Ben Watson from 10 seconds back and pass Glenn Coldenhoff to do it. Then he goes down in the first turn and comes back to win the overall. I think everyone in the world is pleased for him because he's had such a good career and been so close a couple of times with Italy, finally to get it. And Alex Lupino, I think you have to put your hands together because that must have been one of the most pressurised situations any rider has ever been in. But on a racetrack, he had the whole country on his shoulders and his best mate's dream. This was probably Cairoli's last chance, presuming he doesn't sort of do a wildcard event like Max Nagel did this year for Italy if they really need him. But as a full-time professional rider, probably the last time in Italy, this was Cairoli's last chance, and it was all on Lupino for the last 2-3 laps, and he delivered. There are facial expressions at the end, the joy of Guadagnini and the complete relief of Lupino, I think, told the story of the race. Lupino managed to get that done, and that must be one of the greatest moments of his life, and also the worst at one point.
Yeah, I would say you're spot on. Crazy, crazy, crazy. If you were writing a script for the weekend, I don't think you could have predicted anything like that to happen. Absolutely crazy. I mean, before the event, the Netherlands and Italy both were favourites, but to go the way the event went, rain got involved. But, I think that made the event personally. It was fantastic, and the conditions were great. And a dodgy first corner, it was just drama all weekend, really. And unbelievable. It's going to take me a while to get over that. That was one of the most crazy nations ever, actually, in my opinion. Superb stuff.
And whenever you look at the results, Italy had actually a really solid day, except for Cairoli's 21st. They went 2, 5, 6, 7, and Lupino should have had a 7. So in speed and everything, they were actually delivered, except for that first corner crash. But then you added that penalty in. The Netherlands come in. Great Britain came right into it. A couple of passes difference from those guys. Ben Watson not having that scary crash. They could easily have took the win in the end. But I think from the heat races on the Saturday, I kind of felt it was Holland's to lose in terms of they needed a disaster to not get it. But after Saturday, I think it looked a wee bit more realistic for especially Italy, GB, and a couple of others to get in there. And it wasn't going to be as much of a runaway as everyone had maybe expected because Italy were on the pace yesterday straight away. And as it turned out, Holland did go down in the first turn, but then they took Cairoli with them. So that almost evened it out. And it was the story, I think, of the MX2 pick for Holland. Rowan van der Moostek, it was a difficult day for him. I don't think he rode badly. He kind of had to come from the back every single race. But Matteo Guadagnini got the starts while Rowan's only 1 week back racing from a broken wrist. And you have to kind of think, Kai de Wolf, would he have been the more physically ready rider to go into Holland after what transpired? But of course, hindsight's pretty easy to make that decision. And I don't know if Rowan, I really think Rowan was riding bad. He just didn't get away. He was always battling from the back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's be honest, the Netherlands had a disaster today and they came 1 point away from winning. So you're talking about fine margins there. And I mean, Van der Moostek, you're right, really bad starts. He rode okay under the circumstances, but this guy isn't 100% fit yet. So even though he wants to race the event, represent his country, it's almost not fair in a way to put him in that situation because probably a lot of people are going to blame him for that. But, he didn't have an amazing day. Then Coldenhoff goes down the first corner as well. Coldenhoff didn't ride like he usually does at the Motocross Nations, but at least he rode well in the last moto. But really, aside from Hurling's 1-1, they only really had one other good moto, and that's not going to win you an event. So considering the disaster they had, to come within 1 point to win it actually isn't too bad. I mean, you look at it that way. If they had Kai de Wolf, he might have been the difference on the day. But as you say, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We'll never know now. But I think they'll be gutted not to win, but considering everything that went against them, they've done all right to get second.
And Jeffrey Hurlings went 1-1 for the first time in motocross, his Motocross the Nations personal history. That was always a big goal of his, even when they were the one a couple of years ago at Aston. Hurlings didn't go 1-1. It's been Glenn Coldenhoff delivering that for them recently, but Hurlings was without doubt on a complete level apart from everyone else. Definitely the fastest man on the planet this weekend without any competition, really. I know Cairoli was a bit injured, but even the lap times he was doing were just on a different planet to every other rider out there. It was a tricky track. The rain came, made it pretty treacherous in places. Just ask Lupino. And Hurlings made it look pretty easy. A lot of momentum, pretty smooth. Didn't look rushed. 2 wins by big margins. And I'm sure he's very happy on a personal level to check that off as a 1-1, as a box ticked on his career. But as you said, just to come up 1 point short, it isn't the first time Holland have narrowly lost out on victory. At Redbud, they should have won it. They were complete domination. Calvin got the eye injury. At Majora, I think it was a few years ago, Fevra passed somebody on the last lap to take it out of Holland's hands, and they finished about a point or something short that year. So they could have realistically won it 3 or 4 times, and they've only won it once. But that's the way it goes at the Motocross of Nations. That's why it's one of the greatest races of the season. You just don't know what's going to happen.
That's it. I think in the past you could make a stronger case for the Netherlands winning it than this year, I would say, even though they're only a point off this year. Because like I say, this year they did have a bit of a disaster at Red Bull. It was just bad luck if Flandern can line up and race to win that event. And then, like you said, Madura went down to the last lap. So again, that one is probably a stronger case today. I mean, Italy really do deserve it today, and you know it took a penalty for the Netherlands to get close, really, in that respect. So you can look at it that way. But overall, I'm pleased to see Italy win. The Netherlands, they have to move on to next year. This is obviously their golden era, but I do think they will win it again. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in MX2 next year. Rowan van der Moosdijk and Kai de Wolf battling. But you would think Hurlings and Coldenhoff are going to be permanent members of this team moving forward as long as they can stay injury-free. And on a personal level, it's quite hard to believe it's took Hurlings this long to go 1-1 at the Motocross the Nations, because he's been the fastest man on the planet for a pretty long time. And yeah, he's finally done it this weekend, so he can be happy on a personal level. But I bet you after that first moto, he's thinking, dearie me, I should have maybe done a Tim Geiser here and sat at home.
That was actually my one worry this whole weekend was Cairoli or Hurlings or some of these top title contenders were going to get injured. But Hurlings played it smart, and on the heat race, he didn't even go for the whole shot out wide. He cut in tight, worked his way through to win that one, and again took the inside gate both times, rode sensibly, and just ran away with it. So Hurlings didn't get the team result, got the 2 wins, thankfully out of there safe, and that's all about the MXGP World Championship for him. But for Great Britain, it was all about the podium, and they were just 2 points shy of Italy for first place. And Ben Watson, I think we saw his true potential on a 450 this weekend. Fantastic. Every single moto, he got good starts. He ran the pace. Even in the heat race in the dry, so dry or wet, Ben Watson was there. That crash, though, in that last race, that was pretty scary. I was surprised, A, the bike wasn't damaged, and more importantly, B, that he wasn't injured. Thankfully, he was able to get up. I think he only lost 1 position as well, which is remarkable. It shows you the pace they had at the front. Went 3-4 to win the MXGP class as well. So a brilliant day for Ben, backed up by Sean Simpson. 6th on a 12th in his first race, 6th in that third race with a broken ligament in his thumb. Sean really stepped up, showed a lot of heart, grit and determination. But at Sean Simpson, that's pretty much how he's been through his whole career. So I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but I think everybody's very pleased to see Sean get another podium for GB. And Conrad Mewes, unbelievable ride on the Saturday in the dry. It was actually catching Hoffer and who were both catching Vial at one point. So Conrad Mewes, if he needed a ride to really believe in himself again, that was the ride. He's got the talent. We all know it, but sometimes you have to do it to really believe it. And hopefully for Conrad, that was the ride that sees the rest of this GP season where he can show what he can do. But the Sunday was a little bit more difficult. He didn't get the starts that Tom Vial had or Matteo Guadagnini had. Struggled maybe slightly in the first one to 22nd. It wasn't bad, but compared to the level he was showing on the Saturday, you maybe were expecting slightly more, but then he delivered again when it mattered in race two to come up to 14th on a tough track. You don't really want a bad start at Mantova. It's pretty hard to pass, but Maes got the job done. Third overall for Great Britain, 1 point off second and 2 points off Italy for the win. Brilliant weekend for them.
Absolutely. Very, very, very good. Mark Chamberlain, since he's took over as team manager, has done an excellent job. GB for a number of years just couldn't buy a podium, and since Chamberlain's come in, they're on the podium all the time. So what a job he's done. Deserves every bit of credit he gets. The team atmosphere seems to be really, really good there as well. I mean, anybody that predicted Ben Watson to win the MXGP overall coming into the weekend, I think most people would have called them bonkers. But here we are now talking about Ben Watson winning the MXGP overall at Mantova. Absolutely crazy. Rode fantastic on his factory Yamaha and thoroughly deserved it. Obviously, Cole and Hoff and Crowley had their issues, but you can't take it away from Watson. He rode very well all weekend. For me, Sean Simpson is the reason they won it. After what happened on Saturday, you were thinking it's going to be tough for him out there. Obviously, we all know he's a very determined rider, but sometimes the pain just proves to be too much to handle. But Simpson was brilliant. Obviously, conditions to his liking as well, but for him to go third overall in the open class, really, really good. And Conrad Mewes had one good moto, which was required from him, really, 14th in race two, and that helped him get the podium. And on another day, they could have maybe took the win there if Sean Simpson was 100% on race day. But I think they can be happy with the podium, and they're getting ever so much closer to winning one of these events.
Yeah, whenever I heard Sean had hurt his thumb, I started thinking this is kind of typical British bad luck. It's going to be hard for Sean, especially on that track. I know those are the conditions he loves, but was it with a sore thumb around there? It wasn't going to be easy, but he somehow strapped it up, got some painkillers, he said, and went out, did the business. You would hardly know he was injured. And Conrad Mewes delivered as well, so that's got to be great for his confidence. And Team GB, I think we thought that they could get a podium and an outside chance at the win, but that win was actually pretty realistic in the last 2 or 3 laps. A pass or two from Simpson or Watson, if they got a wee bit closer to Coldenhoff and was it Bobryshev just in front of Simpson, that actually could have turned it around. So Britain were, I'm not sure whether they even knew how close they were to the win with all this penalty drama with Lupino, but they'll have to go back home very proud of their efforts.
Absolutely. Especially after Saturday, team are probably thinking this is going to be a tough one for Sean, but yeah, he delivered, and Watson and Mewes rode really well. So third overall, they got their podium, and absolutely, I'm sure they were surprised after it when they were told they were only 2 points off a win. They probably couldn't believe it. Everyone sort of went through their dramas today, and for them to have their worst result of a 22, which it could drop, is actually, if you look at all the other results, very consistent. So their consistency got them the podium, and it very nearly got them the win, but not to be today, but a really good result under the circumstances. And Red Bud next year, be interesting how they do there.
Right, let's talk about the RUSSINS. I don't think we're allowed to say that word. The MFR team.
The Russians, the crazy Russians. I've went and said it. We're calling them Russia.
Well, the MFR team, Bobryshev did really, really well. 5th place in the third moto, but I was very impressed by Brekaloff. He's been out of the GP scene a year or two. Was a very fast rider, but had a tendency to crash and get hurt. But to go 7-7 there, I thought was fantastic. And Bobryshev again a 10th, backed up by their MX2 rider, 15th, Petrashin, possibly is how you say that. So Russia, MFR, 4th overall, and that was a lot better than I was expecting. The top 10, yes, but to go top 5 to take 4th place, really, really good from them. Very impressed.
Absolutely fantastic. I think their best finish coming into the weekend was 8th, so that was their best career to motocross the nations for Russia, MFR. Really, really good. Burakov, I mean, I don't think anyone would have predicted Watson to go first in the MXGP class, but if anyone had predicted Burakov to go second, you'd be called bonkers. But there we go, 7-7, really good day. one of those days everything must have just clicked for him, and absolutely fantastic. Bobashev has obviously been out of the GP scene, done a couple here or there, but he's mainly focusing on the British Championship this year, and he ended the season strong, and he brought that into Mantova really, really good. And Peterson was maybe the biggest surprise of the day, actually. I mean, he's raced a couple of GPs. He rode the first round in Russia as a wild card in his home country, but aside from that, he's had some decent results in the MX 250. But for him to go fifth overall in MX2 and beat Muse and Van den Moosdijk and the overall guys like that, very, very impressive. Unbelievable day for Russia, and they'll maybe also be doing what Italy are doing, out in the drink party in the night, and who can blame them?
Someone who won't be probably is France, because they went from, you wouldn't think they're going to be challenging for a podium, never mind a win, to showing really good speed, all three riders on the Saturday, and you start thinking they could do something if Vial gets away on the Sunday. Vial got away on Sunday, probably should have won the first race if he hadn't crashed. I think he was the fastest guy. Still took second, really good ride for Thomas Kjær, his best ride of the season on the 450 to take that win for Denmark. But Tom Vial rode smart. Once he crashed, he seemed to lost his goggles at the end, so couldn't really make that push the last couple of laps. But a brilliant ride for him, and I think it showed just how special Tom Vial is in terms of a talent. And Benoit Paturel backed that up fantastically well with the ninth. And from there, with the problems for Cairoli and Kolenhoff and the Dutch, it looked like it was France's to lose. And in the second moto, everything that could have went wrong did go wrong. Barsami crashed. He ended up 19th, and Tom Vial had a mechanical after not a great start, and he went 38th. And I was expecting Vial to get away at top 10 at least, and probably to be minimum top 10, maybe top 5 that race. And that would have almost sealed the deal, or at least put France in very strong contention for, if not a win, the podium. And then everything just went wrong, and they ended up 5th, which isn't too bad. But after that first moto, you thought France with their C or D team are going to come and maybe win this race.
Absolutely crazy. I mean, after the first race, you were just thinking they're actually going to do it again. They're going to do it again. But yeah, then it all went a disaster, really. I mean, Vial, was it the chain fell off? It was such a dramatic day. I can hardly remember what happened now. But yeah, I think the chain fell off for Vial. So then they could have actually maybe afforded that, but then it put a lot of pressure on Barami, because the way after the first moto went, you know, they could have afforded one bad moto, but Barami didn't have a great day, and then with Vial having the DNF, it was sort of a domino effect for this. After the first moto was so good, it just ended a bit of a disaster for them. But you know, coming into the weekend, you'd have probably said 5th for France is quite good under the circumstances, but it's just after that first moto you were thinking, my goodness, they're going to do it again. But as we saw with the conditions, and as we saw with a number of teams, anything can happen. Even look at Belgium. You were thinking after the second race they could pull off a miracle, but then they had their bad luck too. So it wasn't just France that had their bad luck, to be fair, but crazy day.
Yeah, you've just ruined it there. I was about to talk about Belgium, so we'll talk about Belgium anyway. You know, Belgium, maybe an outside chance of the top 5, definitely top 10. Now, they ended up 6th, which you would look at and say that was really, really good. And it was. But as you just said and wrecked the whole intro, that race is in. What happened to France after the first moto then ended up happening to Belgium in the third moto with 2 DNFs, because they were second going into the last race. Liam Evers, first motocross of nations, 17th in the first race, and the 13th actually beating Conrad in race 2. Evers stepped up and delivered. And Cyril Guineau, 6th in that first moto, absolutely brilliant. That almost put the pressure on Van Donick. He then delivered, was the 4th in the second race, and you're like, my goodness. And then you got slightly carried away and had Belgium for the win as they were lining up for the third race. So yet again, you've managed to jinx people. So you should probably stop doing that.
It's all my fault. Absolute disaster. I have to say, I was getting very, very excited for them. I thought after the first moto, they've got a slight chance here, you know. And then after the second moto, you're thinking, oh my goodness, if both riders can get half decent starts, they could actually pull off a miracle, and it would have really been their C team. Let's be honest. Brent's the only rider that makes Team A this year if they have all the riders available. But can't take anything away from Liam Everts. He really stepped up to the plate, 4th overall in MX2. Fantastic. Cyril Guineau, conditions that he is so good at. So it actually shouldn't really be that much of a surprise to see him finish. I think it was sixth in the first moto, and in the final moto, he actually started 15th or 16th, and by the end of the first lap, he was up to 10th. So he was really running a high pace. But then I think his clutch fell off. So I mean, for all the races for that to happen, that's certainly not the one for him. And then Brent Van Donik, after a solid fourth, also had his issues. So it went from, oh my goodness, they're a point off, to, oh dear, this is just a disaster, after getting so excited for them. So probably not much you can do whenever I jinx them. I'm sorry, Team Belgium.
Whenever you see the penalty for Lupino at the end, if Belgium had kept two of those 450 guys in the top 10, it would have been very close for them for even a podium. The consistency of all three riders, I think, was until the last moto. So slightly contradiction, but up until then, their consistency was surprising. You said Gino's good, and you weren't surprised with the sixth. Yes, I could have seen him in around maybe top 10, lower reaches of the top 10, sort of 8 to 12 maybe, but sixth did surprise me a bit, although he has been good in the races he's done in MXGP, and as you said, these conditions suit him. But to ride for the nations with all the pressure and to go out and deliver a sixth, I thought was really, really impressive.
Yeah, really good. I think one thing we should say on Belgium, even though they finished sixth, I don't think that actually reflects their speed whatsoever.
No.
This weekend. It was just pure bad luck, really. And if it hadn't been for those issues, I mean, Everts might have had their worst result at 17, and that's still pretty good, but just bad luck in the last moto cost them. But I think speed-wise, they certainly deserve the top 5, but what can you do when stuff like that happens? Not an awful lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think they definitely deserve to be in that fight for the podium. And to be fair, the fight for the podium was a fight for the win with the way everything transpired. Another rider we need to talk about, Estonia, by the way, 7th. As usual, great consistency from them. Nothing spectacular, just delivering lap after lap. Seventh for them. Estonia always pretty underrated, but always come out and ride really well when it counts on a Sunday at the Disnations. 11, 13, or 11, 15 for Kulas. 13th and a 16th for Kresnov and Talviku, who was riding pretty good on the Saturday. A 23rd, but that's not too bad for an MX2 ride and pretty deep field with the 450s. But Switzerland, 8th place, they're always the team you think could they be a top 5 podium contender, but of course they lost Jeremy Sear. But then Valentin Guillo thought he was back on a 250 Yamaha 5 years ago. He went out and got phenomenal second place in the second moto. Arnold Tonis, a really good ride in the first moto with 4th. And those two really stepped up to deliver a top 10 for Switzerland.
I have to say, I was watching that race, just scratching my head of Valentin Guillo. Unbelievable. I mean, he comes out, finishes second, which is as good as a win, let's be honest. I mean, he's not going to beat Jeffrey Hurlings. So you may as well have said won the first moto. He's not going to do any better. And you were sort of just waiting on him to fade back, but it never came. And if he could ride like that every weekend, it'd be sensational. He's such a talented rider, but since getting up to MXGP, things just haven't clicked for him. But, it was nice for him to remind us of the talent he has, and hopefully that will help his confidence too. He just went out there and rode a very good race. Start was obviously a big plus for him, but hopefully he's just proved to himself that if he can get a start like that in MXGP, that he has got what it takes to run with those guys.
And sand in those conditions were never his strength, even when he was up trying to at the front in MX2, it was always on the hard pack. So he has to take confidence from that. And you kind of think if you can get that guy going and put him even back on a 250 and have Jeremy Sear on form with Tonis, that's still a potential top 5 team. But to get 8th overall, I don't think I expected that from the Swiss. Guillo's had a pretty tough season on an international stage, but he stepped up and delivered. And also Tonis, we should say, great ride for him. He always has the talent for me. He's very like Christian Craig in America. He's just oozing talent and style. But things seem to just go wrong but when it matters for those guys. So nice to see Tonis back up at the front and showing his potential. Switzerland do have a lot of talented riders. It's just sometimes putting it all together for a Motocross of Nations. Even this year they didn't have Jeremy Sear because of the timing. But those guys, including Mike Guerta, who got a 30th, his best result, 8th overall for Switzerland, definitely very good for them.
Yeah, very good weekend. I think you've summed it up nicely there. And yeah, I think 3 or 4 years ago, you really did think they could have been a top five, but because Valentin Guillot just things haven't went to plan for him, and even Tonus is having a few difficulties now. I mean, they still have good races in them, but they're very up and down. You don't expect what you maybe expected 3 or 4 years ago, and like you said, the loss of Sewer is a big one because he would be the team captain of the team. But having said that, they have got the young Mike Gorder coming up, so if Guillot and Tonus can maybe, well, in a normal year they're going to have Sewer, and then you would think it's a fight between Guillot or Tonus possibly, and then Gorder. It'll be good for him to get experience because I feel like he's got a lot of potential. At times he's able to run with Everts and stuff. Maybe not every week, but he can run that pace. So he's one to look out for in the future. So it's good for them that they have got the young talents coming through.
Another standout performance was Renee Hoffer for me. Again, brilliant on the Saturday. He was on Vial's pace for most of the race. Backed it up again today. He led Austria to ninth place. As a teenager, that's pretty impressive on an MX2 machine. First, our race one, he was eighth, not too bad. And then the second moto, he actually caught Jeffrey Hurlings in the first couple of laps, which was unbelievable. And he must have made a mistake because then he ended up around fourth, a couple of laps in, or 3 or 4 laps in. But those first 2 laps, he must have been. It's like something he probably lay in bed, woke up that he just dreamt he ran with Jeffrey Hurlings, and then he was actually going out and doing it. So fantastic for Renee Hoffer. He won the MX2 class as well. He's had a good year, some really good motos, some a wee bit off motos, but as he told us in the podcast, he had a very serious injury. It's taken him shoulder injury. It's taken him a while to get back to and to get back in that race fitness, race sharpness. And it looked in Mantova that he was pretty much back to 100%. That's got to be fantastic for his confidence as well. Anytime you slightly catch Jeffrey Hurlings, even if Hurlings is probably checking out the track and not at his maximum, it's still a pretty amazing thing to do, especially on an MX2 machine.
Yeah, unreal. Very, very good performance. Obviously, he's still chasing a podium in the MX2 World Championship, but if he rides like that, and especially at conditions you wouldn't say suit him really, he's more of a slick hardpack kind of guy. He is getting better in the sand all the time, but that should be a big confidence booster for sure. Like you said, following Hurlings for 2 laps, really, really impressive. You know, at the end of that second moto, I was scratching my head trying to work out who's actually going to win MX2. I had thought, I knew it was between Hoffer or Guadagnini, but, you know, I was glad to see Hoffer get the overall because I feel like he deserved it this weekend. 2 really good races and, you know, something to build on as the season progresses. And Austria can be happy with their day as well. A solid ninth, so really, really good.
That takes us to Denmark. Started off fantastic with Thomas Cairoli getting that race win. And for a while, Mikael Harrop wasn't doing too badly as well. And you were starting to think, here we go. Denmark have 3 good riders with Bastien Bodam, who rode well on the Saturday. They could actually become a bit of a player here for, again, a podium. There's so many teams that at one point look like they could make a play for the podium. Olsen rode really well on the first moto. We mentioned Vial made that mistake, and then he put a bit of pressure on Olsen. But Olsen never cracked. I don't think I've seen him make a single mistake the whole race, and he took the opening moto of the Motocross of Nations. That's probably the performance we've been waiting for in the World Championship. Maybe not a win as such, but that type of ride on that level. And he delivered. Second race wasn't as good, 13th, but if you don't get away, it's pretty tough. Mikael Harrop ended up 26th in his first one. I think he crashed twice maybe. But 17th for race 2 wasn't too bad, and Bastien Bodam had a couple of problems. I think Denmark, if Bodam could have had 2 or even 1 clean race, but probably 2 clean races, Denmark could have been fighting up there and close to the top 5 probably. But Thomas Cairoli, that's got to be a big win for his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, he's delivered sort of this year. He's gone under the radar quite a bit. And I feel like that was a big moto win. And I do feel like he needed it because at one stage, it did look like Vial and Watson were closing the gap. And you were thinking, oh, he could end up third here, which maybe wouldn't have done his confidence the world of good. Not great when you see Vial on a 250 go past you and then your rival in MXGP in terms of who you're battling for the MXGP rookie with flying past you. So I feel like he needed to do it. And actually, after falling back, he did respond really well to the pressure. And like you said, he didn't make a mistake, and I feel like he got better towards the end of the race. So really, really good to recover. And then third overall for him in the MXGP class, very good weekend. Hopefully he can build on this now, and we can see him have better results on a more consistent basis in MXGP. But I have to say, it was quite cool to see him, Vial, and Watson battle again. It was like
MX2 last year.
The MX2, yeah, exactly. But only two of them are in 450s now.
Yeah, it was quite funny because if you didn't know what size of bikes they were on, you would have just thought they were all on the same bike because Vial was going that quick on the wee bike. And as I say, if he hadn't crashed, he was actually ahead of Olsen until the crash. He probably would have won that race. But Olsen, maybe that helped Olsen. Maybe he looked back and he saw the two guys he's raced all last season, and he's been able to beat at times. So he was, as I say, he was the top MX2 guy. That's why we expected a bit more this year, and maybe that helped him relax. And he figured, I've beat these guys before. I'll just go do it again. Now, maybe the first team that's going to be properly disappointed outside of Holland is Germany. They had three strong riders with good pace, especially on the Saturday, and they end up 11th. I think Nagel maybe crashed out of the first one. Jacobi didn't finish the last race, but aside from that, their day wasn't going not too bad. Jacobi had a standout fifth in his first moto race too. But I feel Germany probably expected to be going for a top five, even a podium if things had worked out. Their speed was good, but it just didn't happen for them on the Sunday overall.
Yeah, actually, I agree with that. I had them down for a top five, and especially after Saturday, they had a good day on Saturday. And I do feel like all three guys are riding well, but things just didn't click, and bike problems or crashes, I'm not quite sure what it was. But yeah, you have to say it was a disappointing result to be 11th overall with the potential Lagenfelder has. Started the season really, really well. I would say he's maybe hitting a dip now in terms of his results, but I do feel like his speed is still okay, so I wouldn't be hitting the panic button just yet. Max Nagel obviously has loads of experience, and it's nice actually to see him race a big event again. He still reminded us of the speed he has, and Jacobi can be happy with a Saturday battling with Jeffrey Hurlings, and yeah, like you said, the first moto day was solid for him, but just the team just didn't work out for them this year result wise. But all three individually have got speed.
Finland 12th, that is a pretty fantastic position considering they rode the B final and just squeaked through in the end, riding with a lot of pressure for especially Miro Servonen leading and with Jason Mayer coming on strong at the end. We'll talk about Ireland a bit later. And Emil Weckman, he really rode strong. I think he made a mistake midway through that race, but he held it together. Again, just holding off Stuart Edmonds at the end to get Finland in. And then in the main races, it was Jere Havisto with the best result of a 12th. So I think that really helped Finland. They had the three strong riders, three consistent performances, despite the exhaustion of that 20, I think it was a 20-minute now. B qualifier to come out and do it all again. Three motos for each rider today on pretty difficult conditions. To get 12th is a pretty phenomenal achievement for them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. They really do deserve a round of applause, Finland, actually. Really, really good. I think they have failed to qualify for this for a number of years now, actually. And it hasn't gone too good for them, but a decent rider lineup this year. And, Lady Luck wasn't on their side from the get-go this year. They had the very last gate pick for the qualifying, which wasn't ideal on Saturday, as we've seen with the track. Very hard to pass in one line. So, they'll go to the B final, and it would have been very easy to put their head in the sand and, end up not qualifying. But Havista had his issues in that, but battled hard, charged his way through the field, and it's a good job he did because they ended up tying with Poland, but because Havista had the better third result, they got through to the main event. And yeah, like you said, after the B final and the warm up before it, to then have another two motos in those tough conditions, and they end up 12th is very, very good. So they really do deserve a round of applause. Fair play to them.
On a couple of other teams to discuss here, Lithuania led by Arminas Jasakonis. I thought on the Saturday, Jasakonis would really, really well considering what happened to him the last time he was at that track. The Sunday maybe not quite as good, but still 19 or 9:14, still not too bad. He carried Lithuania, so pleased for him to get some good results and maybe some confidence and better memories back from this track from what happened last year. Canada looked really good. They got the good gate pick and good starts on the Saturday, but 14th overall, probably a bit disappointing now after what happened on Saturday, I would presume.
Yeah, I think you're right. Canada were looking great on Saturday, but then, those conditions, probably not used to those conditions. So that's more of a leveler, let's say, and conditions they're not used to. It's probably why they struggle. I think with Lithuania, I think they just have to be happy when they qualify because it sort of is all on Jasikonis there. And
Yeah.
Karka isn't a bad backup to be fair to him, but it was nice, coming into the weekend. Jasikonis riding that track after what happened last year, a lot of bad memories, but he clearly wasn't thinking about that and was in a good frame of mind because he rode so well on Saturday and he done his job. He got them to the A final. After that, anything is just a bonus really for that nation. So well done to them. I would actually like to give Bulgaria a shout out because it's their first ever motocross to nations, and not only did they get straight through to the A final, but to come 18th is pretty decent at a first attempt. So well done to those guys as well.
Yeah, Petr Petrov, one of the bigger names from that country. Nice to see him back, but difficult races for them in the main event. But obviously qualifying was their goal and they delivered. So fantastic for them. One country I do want to talk about is Latvia. They finished 15th, but it actually could have been a lot better. They had no Pauls Jonas, but Carlos Sabalas, and on the Saturday, Tom's McCooks was absolutely flying. McCooks didn't get the results. DNF must have got injured, didn't do that last race, so that's really hurt them in the overall. But you might have thought they'd be around 15th before the event started, but actually they were probably should have been in around top 10 on their pace. Sabalas was really, really good, 8:10 in his races. As I said, he had a bit of a part to play in the Lupino drama for Italy to win it. He was riding really good. McCooks, as we mentioned, really good on the Saturday. Just didn't go for him on the Sunday. And Pumper's not too bad, 28th, 29th for the MX2 rider. But overall, Latvia, when you consider that's without Pauls Jonas, they've got some quick riders. And we saw in the youth European races last weekend, they've got some quick riders coming up. So fair play to them because they're starting to produce really good riders, not just a standalone like Pauls Jonas. And it means for when Jonas comes back to that team, they're going to have a pretty good, solid team that can maybe start challenging for top 10s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they finished 15th, and under normal circumstances, they would probably bite your hand off that. But I think the speed they had this year doesn't reflect that at all. Probably closer towards the top 10 they deserve. Carlos Sabalas, he's had some good results in the MX2 World Championship before in the MX250, but he's been out of the MXGP paddock for a while. But whatever he's been doing, I think he's been racing in Germany and back at home quite a bit. But it was nice to see him back at a big event and rode really, really well all weekend, really. So big up to him. And like you said, Latvia have so many bright young talents coming through at the minute. I think the Just brothers, after they've sort of stepped away from racing at a high level, have put a lot of work into coaching these kids, and it seems to be really helping. So fair play to them. And yeah, hopefully we'll see Pauls Jonas back at the event next year at Redbud. And they could be one to watch out for. They're really good.
Right, here we go, Team Ireland. Where do we start?
Here we
First
go.
of all,
here we go.
They were so close. Jason, I think, had a brake issue. He stalled on the Saturday. They've got a really good gate pick, which really helped their starts. They all came out, I think, in and around top 5 roughly. But Jason had a brake issue, so that limited him. I think 19th he got in that one. Stuart Edmonds 16th. I think he mentioned he had some sort of issue as well, but 16th is still pretty good. 19th not too bad. And then so that took us to the B final. And again, so close. At the start, the first 10 minutes, it looked like it was Ireland going through. And Edmonds had a crash then. I don't know if he crashed on his own or he got taken out. That could be another issue. And then he went down again trying to make up for it. And Jason rode absolutely phenomenal, almost won the race. He obviously got the board that they needed an extra point, and it was really, really close. And he almost done it. I'm really pleased for him because we've seen how fast he is at home in Ireland. He's now transitioned that to the UK, so they're seeing his speed, especially this year. And now I don't feel in Assen he didn't get to show his potential, but this year in Mantova, he's shown his speed on an international stage, so really pleased for him. The problem for me was when you're Ireland, it's always going to be stressful to qualify and you need to send your three best riders. This time they sent two of the three best, and it meant that the pressure was all on Stuart and Jason's shoulders. They couldn't make a mistake and they couldn't afford to have bike issues. But that's probably going to happen, and you need to account for that. You need to give yourself three chances, not just two. And I feel the choice to choose Jake Sheridan over Martin Barr is what cost Ireland. You can't guarantee it would have been a qualification spot, but certainly a better chance, and maybe take a wee bit of pressure off Edmonds and Mira, because then they know Martin Barr's there. If it doesn't go quite right for them, somebody on that caliber is ready to step in, step up to the plate, a wee bit like we saw with Finland. Havisto, I think, was the tiebreak. He was the third guy for them in the B final, and then he was able to deliver in the main as well. So three riders, especially for a country of Ireland's level, where you're just in or out of the main final, you need to choose your three strongest riders, not just two of them.
Yeah, first of all, fantastic, Jason Mir, really, really good. They almost pulled it off. They almost done a miracle, Jason Mir and Stuart Edmonds. They really, really did. I think, like you alluded to, they didn't send their best three riders, which is the first problem. And that means that Jason and Stuart have very little room for errors. And I think we've seen it with Edmonds. He crashed once, and I think he panicked because he probably knew, oh my goodness, there's only, it's only me and Jason here that are in that after Sheridan crashed in the first corner. And it put a lot of pressure on their shoulders. I feel like Jason rode absolutely fantastic, really, really well. And it was good to see him ride like that at such a big event, because we see it all the time and he doesn't have these opportunities every day. So it was nice to see him deliver after a disappointing Assen, you would say. But he's riding the best he ever has, and he proved that the Motocross the Nations to catch an MXGP rider in the form of Miro Servanen. So really good. Stuart Edmonds done what he always does, ride with his heart on his sleeve, give everything for his country, and possibly maybe just panicked a little bit too much, but you really can't blame him. He rode his heart out, and at the end of the day, my issue is with the selection of Jack Sheridan. Sure, went out and tried his best. That's all fine and dandy, but there's plenty of riders in Ireland that'll go out and give their best. It's 2013 was the last time we failed to qualify. We didn't qualify this year. Australia, America, and Norway didn't even turn up, and we didn't qualify. We need the three of the best riders to go. So hopefully next year there's no politics at play, and they send their best three riders. If they send the best three riders and they don't qualify, then you can hold your hands up and just say not meant to be this year. But I think Mark Farley has got this wrong, and it would be nice if he admitted that he made an error. But that's not going to happen. But that's just the way it is. Politics is at play. People can call me negative if they want, but it is what it is. I could pick a better team, and I think if Martin Barr had been the third rider there, the other two wouldn't have been under quite as much pressure. And to be honest, I think we would have got straight through without the B final. And if it did go to the B final, I think we would have had three riders in the top 10 of that one. So I think we would have maybe sneaked in, but it is what it is. And well done, Jason Mir and Stuart Edmonds. And hope Jake Sheridan had a great experience. I hope he enjoyed it. And representing your country is a huge honour. But unfortunately, I think Mark Farley got that selection wrong.
Yeah, you could tell Jake rode his heart out, but you also need the talent level that Martin Barr has to go out and deliver the speed. Martin rides his heart out, Jake rode his heart out. Stuart Edmonds, talking of riding your heart out, those last few laps for Stuart to try and claw that back at the end was unbelievable. He got right onto the back of those guys. If Ireland had two more laps, they could well have been through. And don't forget that race was shortened. It used to be 30 minutes. So even though the team wasn't the team most probably every person in the country would have picked and would have had Martin Barr in it alongside Jason and Stuart, Jason and Stuart still nearly delivered under a lot of pressure. And they were a wee bit unlucky maybe that the final was shortened because they were coming on very strong.
Yeah, they rode really well. All you can do is credit Stuart and Jason for the way they rode. great to see them ride like that. And, you know, they very, very nearly pulled it off, so credit to them. But there's no shame, as we've seen, the losing to Finland, because as we've seen, they rode really, really well in the final. They picked their best team available, the Finnish Federation, and all three riders are, well, Jer Hafista has MX2 GP experience. And Emil Wackman is a current MX250 rider, and he just moved up to MX2 World Championship actually. And who's the third rider? Can't even think now.
Havista?
I've said Havista. Who was the other one? Can't remember.
Who else did you say?
Havista and Wackman. Yes, Servanen. I forgot Servanen. And he's a current MXGP rider, so there you go. A lot of experience there. Our guys, unfortunately, don't have the experience of racing regularly in the GP paddock. So considering that, I think they've both done very well and can hold their heads high. And I hope it was a great experience for Jack Sheridan as well.
I'm sure a lot of people around the paddock got their eyes open at the Jason's speed. I'm sure there was a lot of people wondering who he was and who this Mira kid was. And he certainly delivered, because people know amongst the paddock and in Europe that the Finn guys are fast, and Sivanen's a legitimate rider. So for Jason to go out there and run with him and catch him, I think that's a big statement from him. And I know it's hard to do. He's not full time. He's riding the British Championships, and those teams, it's very expensive to do EMX racing. But it would be nice for Jason, that kind of rider. Okay, they might not do the MXGP class, but to get experience in those tracks will help Irish riders and younger British riders, even that EMX 450 class, to get experience on those tracks for when they do come to the nations. It's maybe not as big a shock and less of an adoption period, because we've seen when they get the opportunities and they feel comfortable, they have good talent level.
I agree. Hopefully when everything goes back to normal, we can see Jason and maybe even Stuart both do EMX Open wildcard races. Obviously with COVID and stuff, it's a little bit more complicated. You have to go get tested, this, that and the other, and it adds to the expenses. So I can understand it being very difficult for those two guys doing them at the moment. But hopefully once everything's back to normal, where travel's open, you don't have to get tests and everything like that. Hopefully we can see them do a few wildcard rounds, and actually Stuart, maybe even see him do a couple of MXGP races, because he's done a few in the past. So fingers crossed, it'd be nice to see them more regularly in the GP paddock, let's say.
Yeah, I think Glenn McCormick was actually had planned on doing a few EMX Open races this year, but with everything, the way everything still is, that obviously didn't happen. But I think it's not a bad. I've seen John Adamson do it as well from the British Championship. I don't think it's a bad way to go to get your foot wet, especially if you're a bit older and you're on a 450 and you don't want to do or can't for age reasons do the EMX 250 class. But I think we'll have to go back end this podcast, Andy, on saying congratulations to Italy, congratulations especially to Tony Cairoli. I don't think anyone can be dissatisfied, unless maybe you're Dutch, to see Cairoli finally get that Motocross of Nations win. Lupino, hats off to him, because that was unbelievable pressure, and that was just watching. Never mind riding that track. And Matteo Guadagnini, he's just living his best life at the minute. He's in dreamland. So well done to Italy. Well deserved, great to see. And obviously we should add that the fans were back. Not all the fans were there, but it still give that Motocross of Nations atmosphere. And once again, congratulations to Italy. Great to see Tony Cairoli at 36. He's been at this a decade and a half trying to win it for Italy. He's finally got there at probably the last attempt. And all in all, I think the Motocross of Nations was eventually a success, despite all the riders that weren't there. Definitely exciting races. And another thing to mention, it was nice to have the regular 2-day format back, to see the best riders both days. It sort of carried more momentum, the whole series, and I believe that's the plan for next season, to go back to the 2-day format.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we were very sceptical about the Nations this year, but we have to just turn around and say it was a success. Really, really good. I enjoyed every minute of it. I have to say, coming into the weekend, I wasn't too excited, wasn't sure how it was going to go, but it actually turned out great. So fair play. And under the circumstances, well done in front. They ran a good event, and it was nice to see the fans back, like you mentioned. Obviously, I wouldn't want that every year, because you were still missing some of the elite MXGP riders, but the plan is for next year to have it at the end of the season at Red Bull again. So that'll be great. Be more back to normality, let's say, and I'm sure the Americans will turn up next year, so that'll be interesting. Add another dynamic to the race, and hopefully Australia are there too. And yeah, the plan is for next year, the 2-day format will be back, so that'll be good. It's always good to see the MXGP riders as much as possible, especially if you're at the event. And obviously, it's going to be more global next year, so the races won't just be in Europe. That probably means a lot of the fans will be unhappy, and you'll see a lot of negativity about full gates, this, that, and the galore on social media. But at the end of the day, it is the World Championship, so they have to go outside Europe. Obviously, they might not go to every country that you agree with, but hopefully they can get it right next year, and it'll be interesting to see the calendar when it's out.
And also, just before we go, Tony Cairoli got awarded his career number 222, so that will no longer be available for riders in the World Championship. I think when this level, a rider of Cairoli's level and everything he's done, he's just added the Motocross of Nations to that now as well. 9 World Championships, 1 Motocross of Nations, 93 Grand Prix wins, and he's still an outside chance at a 10th world title. So if you're going to give a career number, 222 is the number for people to reserve for Antonio Cairoli. Maybe his kid will use it someday, like Liam Everett is using the 72. But congratulations to Tony on that. That's a huge sign of respect from in-front motor racing and everybody involved in the World Championship, and he absolutely deserves that.
Yep, he absolutely does, and I'm glad you mentioned his kid there, because that is exactly what I was going to say. If Chase ever makes it, I can guarantee you the number 222 will be back, and what a story that would be. You can't rule it out, sure you can, with if he gets some of his dad's genes, but who knows, that's a long way down the line. And just before we go, Germany next weekend, as good as the Motocross Nations was great. I still can't wait to see all the elite guys there next weekend, buzzing for that one in the hard pack.
Yeah, I haven't even got thinking about that much this weekend with the way the Disney Nations panned out. But yes, those guys back. We mentioned before, nice to see Cairoli back and riding, first of all, from Raiola. He's still a bit sore, I know, but he's done a good job this weekend. And also Jeffrey Hurling's got through, no injuries. Dominating win, and let's bring on MXGP next weekend. Right, Andy, thank you. Brilliant event at Mantova, fantastic. And as we said, it's MXGP somehow still going on. It feels a bit weird that it's still there, but the meat of the series is starting next week in Deutschland. All the best, Andy. See you later. Bye bye.
Ciao.